My name is Camille Peters, and this is the presentation of my final project for Library 244 Online Searching, Gentrification in 21st Century America, Resources and Strategies. So I wouldn't normally begin a presentation with a definition. However, in this case, it seems warranted. There's no direct synonym for gentrification, which really helps a lot with searching. However, many people use gentrification to mean different things, sometimes entirely different things. Some people use gentrification interchangeably with revitalization, especially with the idea of urban revitalization. So here is our definition. Gentrification is the process of neighborhood change that results in the replacement of lower income residents with higher income ones. To that, I would add that there's often a racial component to gentrification. Typically, it's a community of color where people, the higher income people moving in, are white or perhaps not of the same color as the neighbors already there. My client for this project is a community organizer in Oakland, California. They are also a member of a collective called Black Folks House. My client's interest in this project is to develop strategies for low-income people still living in areas after gentrification. They hope to do some more research in this area and eventually create some type of workshop that could be easily reproduced for different communities across the country. And really, one of my clients' emphases is that they want to look at the effects of gentrification without focusing on displacement. They really want to talk about the people who stay in the neighborhood, not just the people who are pushed out. So, my searches and strategies. When I began searching, I started with what is perhaps more comfortable for me, but not necessarily the best choice for this kind of search. I began with subscription academic databases. I was looking through scholarly articles, scholarly journals to find relevant articles for my client. But the results were less than inspiring. And after thinking about it a little longer, I actually drew upon my own community knowledge instead of something that I got from an outside search engine. There was an organization that I knew of that had done a report on gentrification. And I thought about that report and how I could find that report online. And then I looked to see if I could use those same techniques. I thought about what kind of info I wanted and where it would most likely be found. And what I realized is that most of that kind of information, the more grassroots organizing, those things are typically available online for free. Of course, they are trying to spread a message, so it makes more sense for things to be openly available. So as I started thinking about shifting my search, I also decided that I wanted to limit my results to free open access materials. It seemed to me that it would be a better choice for grassroots organizing because not all grassroots organizers would have the kinds of affiliations that one needs to get access subscription sites. So I was going to limit to free online sources. So what I did after that, I started to work with some of the deep web search techniques. I tried looking for a truncated version of gentrification and the word database. And while that didn't exactly work the way I wanted it to, it did help me. I didn't find any databases about gentrification, but I did find a LibGuide that had been produced about 4 years ago. And from that LibGuide, from the resources that were cited there, I was able to do some pearl growing. I radiated out from that first site and found more and more sources. I also used some advanced Google search techniques, primarily the file type search. I looked for PDFs and various combinations of search terms, usually some truncated version of gentrification, and maybe education or schools or businesses, etc. And those searches, especially the PDF searches, were very, very successful. I knew from the reference interview that one of my clients' ongoing issues with this project was not having enough time to complete it. With that in mind, I set out to create something very convenient and handy for them to use whenever they wanted to get information about gentrification. So I compiled my sources into this guide for resources. The guide for resources is broken into 4 categories. First, there are statistics, which are mostly census sites and other government websites. Then there are articles and reports. Third section is databases and portals, and then finally there are other web resources. And you can see this entry, these 2 entries from the guide to resources. First, each entry has a reference number on the side, the 1 and the 2. And you'll also notice that they have tags. There are plain tags, and then there are also location tags for those articles or sources that deal with a particular place. Finally, you'll notice that there are hyperlinks in the citations. To maximize convenience, I wanted to give my client a tool that could be both bibliography and also content. So the content is just a click away, and that way they'll be able to maximize the time that they can spend on this project. And finally, at the end of the guide, there are these 2 indices. There's an index of place names, and there's also an index of tags. They're both set up the same way, with the places or the tags on the left and the reference numbers on the right. And it may be hard to see in the small print, but the reference numbers are themselves hyperlinked, so you can click on the reference number there and it will take you back to the resource. The client was pleased with the results overall. Their main suggestion was that I include more of the local grassroots organizing materials. And I agreed with that, and I also agreed that in general there should be more resources in the guide. I think it's a good start, but certainly the hyperlinks within the document and the tag system would be more meaningful with a larger number of sources. But I learned a lot from this experience, and I was able to create a tool that would be useful for my client. So thank you very much for listening to the presentation.